everyone. This is Rita and you are listening to the Real Talk, Real Results podcast, the show that does not sugarcoat B2B marketers' everyday challenges and discusses actionable, realistic solutions. Today, we're discussing field marketing demand generation in a post-COVID world. Joining me is Alyse Okamura, Director of Field Marketing at Cohesity. Alyse, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background and expertise?
Yes, thank you. Hi, thank you so much for having me. Good to see you. So Alyse Okamura here. I lead a field marketing team here at Cohesity today. We're a B2B organization. Been with the company for a little over 6 years and based here in San Jose, California. My background includes field marketing, but also partner marketing from other B2B organizations in our space, and also working at what we call channel reseller partners as well.
Wow, 6 years, that is a long time to be at one company. And I love to see when people have been somewhere for a longer time, because I think it shows that you have a great grasp of the product, the industry, as well as the marketing organization and just the different dependencies and strategies over time. And I don't know, I'm also someone who likes to stay somewhere long. So I love to see that.
Especially with, COVID and what has happened, over the last 3 years. I think that has definitely been an interesting time in our space and in our industry.
Yes, absolutely. So speaking of COVID, and now that we're in a mostly post-COVID world, what does field marketing success look like now?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely changed. I think before COVID, we were in person a lot at events. That obviously shifted for a lot of folks that do trade shows and, in-person activities. That came to a screeching halt. We all got very comfortable hosting Zoom meetings, being hosts. I have also been in your shoes too, hosting my own virtual events and, recordings and trying to make sure breakout rooms work. But I think with, post-COVID, we're now reevaluating, right? Trying to figure out how we meet our customers. A lot of folks, gotten not used to, but right, the integration of their personal life and home. And I think now it's trying to reevaluate, what type of activities work to fit your customer. So I think, engaging, clients from, big trade shows, because people do like to travel. I think travel budgets have also, been affected as well. And so trying to find the right, mix of activities, may it be demand gen, not demand gen, but digital advertising, content syndication, or maybe one-on-one engagements, and doing a little bit more research. I think that's the other big piece, is that buyers themselves have gotten, more educated as well and do their own research.
The integration between field marketing and digital, because as someone who has a more digital demand background, I fully understand as well as support that my role for someone who's in your role in field marketing is to help provide that air coverage and support and engagement from top of funnel as somebody is moving into our systems, moving down the funnels, and getting ready to do something, whether it's an in-person event or a digital event that is going to have more interaction with others. And there's really, I think, a lot more focus on that partnership in ways that, not that it didn't exist, but maybe it wasn't as prevalent pre-COVID. Yeah. So with all of these changes, how do you think the definition of success has evolved, especially when showing success to your leaders in, the marketing organization, or even, at the top of the business executive leadership as a whole?
Definitely. I think before, right, I remember even, interviewing at my company way back when we were talking about how many events have you executed? And now it's, definitely switched to not just maybe ROI, but also the type of engagements that, you're not executing on, but moving through the funnel. So different maybe types of buyers that you're touching. So maybe more C-level buyers, maybe more individuals within the team. I also think, looking at more of the lead funnel. So, right, same like you, I work with my, internal growth marketing peers, and together we're looking at, okay, how many AQLs or leads are we bringing in? How are we trying to convert them into meetings for our SDR teams? And really kind of analyzing, hey, what activity maybe is doing that movement. So a lot more collaboration with, like I said, folks, people, your peers, team members like you, and also maybe what kind of ROI, right? I know everyone, also has to look at their investments, and what they're getting out of it. But I think now we're just scrutinizing it a much more than we, I think, have in the past, and so. Not just, looking maybe at a trade show, at booth scans, and, how many people that you're touching, but, maybe how many meetings did you do at that trade show, things like that.
Yes, we have to show some form of result much quicker and in a much more tangible way. And you said that you're looking at your investments and how that, is impacting the program. So has your investment strategy, or how has your investment strategy and program planning changed since COVID, as well as the current economic conditions?
I've also noticed actually with vendors, I'm not sure if you and your teams too have noticed a shift in vendors and their offerings. I think before it used to always be in-person events, right? And they're adding more of these options for meetings. I remember a vendor, oh gosh, maybe like 10 years ago, where it was speed dating. And I just thought that was so interesting and funny. I was like, really? Nobody wants to do speed dating with, a buyer. But I've seen more and more of that offering, or maybe, hey, here's like a full day, you know, executive, summit, but then we're going to offer you one-on-one meetings with these executives and doing more one-on-one matching. So that's been really interesting to see even vendors offering that. And that's, something more of what me and my peers are looking at to get in touch with these people. Because like I said, it's been really tough, right? When you host an event, people would just prefer to be at home. And so we have to find these right, either different vendor activities or, third-party things where people have kind of created that community to where we can engage them directly.
Yeah, you mentioned executives a couple of times.
Yeah.
Have you found yourself running more like events and field marketing activities for executives than you have in the past?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I think we've noticed, and also using our own executives. So, in our space, right, we're, in the infrastructure IT space. So using our own CISO or CTO, for, executive roundtables, and kind of like I said, using third parties, but how do you create maybe a bespoke package of maybe an executive roundtable, to where you're not maybe selling, but you're creating a conversation and encouraging more of that, building that relationship and engagement, different than, hey, let me try to sell you something. And we've seen much more success with that. So flipping kind of the strategy instead of selling, but more into more thought leadership, engagement, community style. And yeah, recently I've noticed that as well. People are like, hey, that was a great, conversation. Let me connect with you on LinkedIn. So it was kind of cool to see that, automatic meeting, if you will, happen.
Yes, it's there's more of a focus on the relationship building aspect,
Absolutely.
because of course when you're in that executive level position, like that people are trying to sell to you at any moment. And so creating an opportunity and environment where leaders can learn from each other, can speak to each other, can learn about industry trends, new products, technologies, all of that, I think really does lend to like more benefits in the long run. Do you find that it speeds up like opportunity creation or even deal acceleration when bringing in a C-suite executive to a conversation, or does it almost take longer to close depending on when they come in at a particular account engagement?
I think we're figuring that out. I'm on sales, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's a bit of a curveball question. I think it's something everybody, like, we're all figuring it out, right?
Yeah,
Like, everybody
definitely.
wants to sell into the C-suite, and we're all trying to figure out the right way to do it. And I think every company has their own way of approaching it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely helps. Right? Organizations have grown. You bring in different executives and their past experiences. You maybe kind of build out a C-level technical team. Having field CTOs. I know a lot of organizations have that. So leveraging kind of that technical expertise, but that thought leadership. We have, I think a lot of companies have noticed that more prevalent in helping their deals. I think it depends also on like who your customer is, right? If they're
Right.
a Fortune 500 company or 1000, like it's going to probably take a much longer time to engage them, find the right person. So kind of depends, but I definitely think it helps versus, a cold outreach.
A little bit earlier, you used the term AQL. For our audience, I want to confirm that means account qualified lead, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think a lot of organizations may call them MQLs.
Yes, yes, yes. So there's a lot of definitions out there around lead qualification, and AQL is a newer one, a semi-newer one, as account-based marketing has become more and more prevalent across a lot of our enterprise teams and industries. Where do you think ABM fits into field marketing?
It's, I think, an integration, right, with sales. I think we're all learning what ABM is, right, at our different organizations, the size of your own organization. And it's also a lot of technology tools. I kind of did some research. I think there's a platform out there called Sixth Sense, using technology, AI, and every different company, uses some sort of technology, but kind of how do you bring in your own lead data, right? We were just talking about with
Yeah,
AQLs and what, our prospects are doing. How are they moving down the funnel? How do you bring in maybe what they're Google searching, clicking on third-party websites, and then, working with your sales team, obviously, too. So it's a lot of different, I think, components. And then with field marketing, right? I think myself and my team, one thing I love about this role is we're an extension of sales, and that connection between, marketing and sales. And so, we're really sitting down with like our growth marketing team and saying, okay, here's, different types of content. How do we bring that into, the sales conversation, or what types of content really meet those needs of, those account managers? And so, yeah, versus, getting activities and programs, out the door, it's much more thoughtful, I've noticed. And again, what we were just talking about with relationship building, I think that's kind of that secret
yeah.
sauce with ABM.
Yes, I definitely agree. I mean, one of the things from the digital side and even from the field marketing side, and then, like tying in sales, is we end up running programs that sales wants.
Yes.
We're generating engagements that sales wants because it's accounts they've identified. Typically, sales leadership, marketing leadership works together to identify the accounts they care about the most, so we can really hone in from both sides of the marketing coin and run programs that hopefully get us into those accounts we want to sell business into.
Yeah, I mean, I would love, sorry to interrupt, but I would love, I don't know if this exists out there, but, a tool, right? We all have our, Salesforce CRMs, we have our, marketing automation systems, but a tool that can just tell you, hey, here's everything that's going on in this account, from how many leads and contacts you have, or, all the different marketing activities, like just in one place. It's like a dream. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
found that yet.
I know of a couple. I'm actually going to give a shout out to a company that I've worked with, a company called Falcon AI, and they can give you that view. All of the touch points inside an account. They can show you the marketing touches, the sales touches, everything from like when you start tracking that account, like to, like the first engagements and opportunities opened or multiple opportunities are opened, all of the activity that happens there. And then when a deal is created, acceleration and all the way to closed won business. So I really love them. This is not an ad for them whatsoever. I wish
we're all learning here, right?
Yeah, we're all learning. But yeah, they are a great tool. I think a lot of companies also try to do some homegrown.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's also a really great opportunity, right? Because so many companies are now starting to build out their own AI, offerings with themselves. So it's, hey, using your own systems to build that. So.
Yeah. And I've seen people use, like organizations use Tableau or Visible. I think that really becomes dependent on the skill set of your internal operations teams, from marketing ops, revenue ops, sales ops, how capable they can be, or even biz ops, in building something like that. Yeah. And also being honest about, it's okay to say, I don't have this skill set, right?
Yes,
all of us are always learning new things, especially in B2B technology, enterprise marketing. Like the things we were doing 2 years ago, though relevant, are different from what we're doing now. We are constantly building. So yeah, just being able to recognize, like, does my team have the skills to do this? Do I need to look externally and find a tool? And there are some tools out there, and I think we will see more and more tools come about as needs change in the marketing world, as well as we see, generative AI and other AI tools coming about. I think that's the future of marketing, which we will touch upon in a different podcast. But yes, so moving on, we were starting to talk about some of the programmatic aspects to field marketing, and I wanted to understand from you, how would you structure field marketing programs for prospect accounts versus existing customers?
I think it's kind of funny, right? Different organizations, you're, measured on different things. Everyone wants, net new accounts. So those prospects, right, in that acquisition, it's such a fine balance. And I think trying to figure out the best ones that work, because you do lean on your sales team too, because they do have, real relationships in field, from their past lives, current, and building these kind of programs. It's yes, the third party, maybe industry style or vertical that fits your needs. Like I said, trade shows, other things maybe that they're your own hosted, or how do you marry programs maybe that you run, like webinars and things like that, with something within your own region. So yeah, kind of a mix of that for those prospects, and trying to engage them, getting them into your funnel, moving them along the buying stage. And then on the flip side, with your current customers, I think we're noticing more and more, like, using customers as your advocate. So that's another really big piece of marrying the two together. So I've seen teams where they bring their prospect accounts and current customers. So maybe that 30-70 mix, and that really helps. 30 meaning the current customers, but yeah, like using your customers as advocates, they can sell for you. So we've seen really, good success with that. And then using customers for maybe advisory council, user groups, things like that, or bringing them in on trade shows where, you can use them as, advocates on, speaking engagements. So I think a variety of the blend.
Yeah.
Saying anything works. I know every organization's different. So
Yes. No, I think we all agree that any kind of customer advocacy, especially in a public sense, whether it's like a case study or quotes for your website, or they join a webinar, or, even better,
videos.
videos, they attend a trade show and they do, a speaking session with, you on stage. I think having that validation from a customer who's used your technology, who loves your technology, it's so integrated into their success. There's nothing better, right? Because we all want to hear from people who have used products how they think about it. Like
I mean, look at us. How we buy on Amazon, how we, go to restaurants, we're using Yelp. So
yes,
same.
yes. So we live in a world where we want to hear from real people that they've used something and they liked it.
Yeah.
And that's so strong right now. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the different aspects of field marketing that also include partnering. So how do you work with channel alliances and partner marketing and fit those teams into your strategic planning as well as execution?
Yeah, I think also depends on the organization, and maybe the types of partners you have. And so maybe, we can kind of talk about that right now.
Yeah.
In our tech space, we have our, what we call maybe OEM or, alliance type partners, ones that have integrations or, joint solutions. And then there's, on the flip side, partners that are more route to market, so meaning more channel type partners, where they're an extension of your sales team. And so I think every company, not just in our tech space, they might be called something a little bit different, but I think they have different outcomes, right? But also you can kind of marry the two together. And back when I was working at a channel partner, right, you get exposed to so many of their different vendors and seeing how all these integrations work and all these synergies. And it is beautiful to see, because you not only get in touch with new prospects and accounts, but seeing how your product is complementary to each other. And then from the channel sense, they're an extension of your sales team. Maybe you have an organization where it's really, your sales team is really small, so leveraging that team to broaden that scope and get in touch with more customers. So I think having some sort of channel strategy, or excuse me, partner strategy, is super important. It just depends on what your ultimate goals are.
Following on to that, how would you run campaigns and programs differently with each type of group, right? We've got alliances, we've got channel, we've got partner. What do those different campaigns and programs look like with each of those?
Yeah, I think I also do, I feel like I need to touch on, there's a sense of enablement too, right? Because
Right.
if someone's it's an extension of your sales team, you want to make sure, they know your product or they know whatever joint solution you have. So I think first kind of starting with that enablement, and intriguing them, right? Part of, your own company or your own sales team. So making sure like that message and education is consistent. And then with, kind of pulling that through, using campaigns to make that extension a little bit broader and larger. And maybe, some companies, right, who they're partnering with, they're just bigger brands, and
Mhm.
so, how do you leverage that? How do you leverage their network and, making it a little bit bigger? I know it probably can be challenging because, right, if you're working with a big company like the AWS and Google's, like they're huge. And so trying to figure out, right, the right programs that um, will fit, your engagement. I think it can start right from a, lens of, maybe joint demand generation of content syndication or different ads, or maybe on a more smaller scale, really using your sales team and you can do more localized type of joint activities.
I think you really touched on it. It's tapping into an audience that's potentially bigger than yours,
Yeah.
right? Like if you can get a really great program going with AWS and Microsoft and any other like big technology partner like that, you get their branding. And that's just so invaluable. Or even like smaller partners, they just might have a better audience. Like they've maybe spent a little bit more time developing their database. They might have a little bit more brand recognition, or they're maybe able to just support certain programs or campaigns that like your internal team can't or doesn't
Yeah.
have the resources to
Mhm.
execute on. Now, a follow-on question there is, when could it not make sense to run programs with your partners?
If you're targeting, the same accounts, or you kind of start to question, are you cannibalizing on your own display ads, for example, right? If you're running them concurrently, you're like, oh man, now I'm kind of, competing with myself. So maybe just taking a pause and just realizing, okay, when are we turning on our own programs, turning them off, things like that. So I think that could maybe be a time to think through that a little bit, or just maybe um, knowing the timing of those other partner organizations from maybe a calendar perspective. I know a lot of organizations are on different calendar years, and so
Yeah.
maybe that might be a piece of it too. And I think, just maybe being aware of if you're at a, big trade show, how are you showing up with competition or other partners and what does that look like, right? Because you want to maybe show that you're friendly to everyone.
Yeah, no, that's really great insight. Something that pops to my mind is the question of, how do we attribute like what the partner organization is doing and what we're doing internally? How do we delineate those roles and responsibilities, the attack plan, and then give credit to who generated the revenue or even closed the revenue? Especially that latter question obviously lives more with sales, but it really does become a big focus as we're, looking at end of quarter, end of year.
Yeah, I think what's really important is knowing that it's a whole team effort. I know it can be really tough. I'm gonna be honest, like I haven't seen an organization that's been perfect at this is the attribution or a multi-touch attribution model that works and is perfect. It's always evolving, because you can look at it from a point system, a percentage, right? But some sort of way that it's a team effort, and knowing that attribution is, from maybe brought in maybe by a digital lead or by a trade show, and it was touch and, influenced and helped move down the funnel with your, your channel partner or, your marketing team, or even sales team too. But being clear with if you're running a program, maybe with a partner sales team, who's driving attendance, who's
Yeah.
bringing food to the table, account mapping, and then, that execution. I think hopefully that's been identified, and then, right, with the follow up to who is kind of owning that as well. And that's always hard. I think it always ebbs and flows depending on, the company. But I think that's kind of the learning and how you build those relationships with, your partners.
Yes, I agree. We are all figuring it out. It's an ever evolving model. Attribution is defined so differently at different organizations. And I think what's key is just knowing how leadership is defining it and where they're kind of guiding like how it will play out when we look back at that revenue creation, revenue generation, and close
Yep,
business.
absolutely.
For my final question today, I think everybody's dying to know, like, what does 2024 look like in the field marketing world? Like,
I would love to. I wish I had a crystal ball.
same, same.
Yeah, I think kind of just bringing it back home to what we were initially talking about with, one-on-one engagement and using different tools, especially with AI being so prevalent, is how do you really get in touch with your prospects and customers and encouraging that engagement? So, like I said, if you're using a third party, just how do you leverage them? What does that follow-up look like? But I think it's not maybe so much, in-person events or, lunch and learn type things, but how do you really engage that person and building that relationship and kind of turning that script on the customer? So we shall see. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know we're all trying to figure it out. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alyse. It was wonderful to have you here, and until next time.
Thank you so much for having me.